Hi, my name is Nic McCoy. I'm the Chief Engineering Officer here at the Whitewater Valley Railroad, and today we're taking you along on a track inspection. These are typically done every 9 days is what the FRA states. We typically have one day we will set a week to do them consistently. This just makes it easier for other members to schedule, as everybody from the president to the newest member are all volunteers. So everything from the crews that you see whenever we see your smiling faces ride, to the mechanics that got the locomotives and coaches to where they're at, to my side of things, which is track, which gets the train to and from its destination in lovely Metamora and Connersville.
Okay, tell us what you're looking for.
While I'm running through track inspection, obviously everything from fallen trees to broken rails, those are usually the two big extremes that would stop trains. One other thing I look for is even something as simple as loose bolts, loose spikes, stuff like that, that can tell me that maybe a curve is pushing out, maybe it needs tightened, it needs loosened, it's a little too tight. I'm looking at the tie count. If I see a big stretch where there's not a lot of good ties, I can notate that and say, hey, next time we do a big group project, or we have some extra time, we need to hit this, or we need to prioritize this because this is in worse shape than that, or something like that. Obviously, defects are the #1 fix. FRA gives 30 days from when they are noticed to get them fixed. There's a deadline on them. So we obviously, even if we didn't have that government time crunch, we want our own terms. We want to push and try to get that done as soon as possible. A lot of times on inspections is also the time we do a lot of small repairs. It's one thing to talk to guys to get 5 to 10 people together to say, hey, we're going to replace a rail today, we're going to do tie work today for one day, versus getting someone out there regularly to, I need to tighten 3 joints up in this spot, or I need to walk this curve to make sure that the tie count's good or not too rotten. Even drainage, saying, hey, our line is fortunate enough to have a very scenic route along the river. The problem is the very scenic river likes to eat away at our ballast. So making sure it's not eating too much away too, to make sure our tracks are stable, is another thing I look out for. Another thing people don't necessarily realize is a lot of crossings, unless it is what is called a private crossing, which is something like a person lives on the other side of the tracks or something like that. Generally a public crossing, which is what the railroad more deals with, just think of it as anything that is public access, like a road or like a park would be public access. The railroad is responsible for those, so making sure those are also being maintained and upkept is very important as well. One benefit to being on the inspection crew is you get a lot more time to kind of enjoy the scenery. A lot of times on the train, the windows are a little smaller and you're not looking as carefully. You just kind of get to take a peek and look and enjoy some of the more unique aspects of our line, such as the airport.
All right, Nick, what have we found?
I am currently checking to make sure there are no loose bolts. It's also good, as this is a curve, to walk in, make sure we just recently did tie work in through here. But normally you'd look to try to figure out what your tie situation is. We as a class 1, we legally have to have 1 good tie every 5. But we try to aim for class 2, which is a good tie every 3, roughly. As lazy as it may seem, impact is good to check for bolt looseness, mostly because a lot of times it won't come loose until there's weight on it. So kind of simulating an impact can kind of help with that. I have located our culprit. Jumping up and down isn't just something I do for fun either. That is a way to tell if somewhere needs tamped. As I said, I do not weigh anywhere near what a locomotive weighs, but the impact of stuff can help simulate that kind of weight. So now that I've found our defect, I'll go grab my gear. Okay, so this is the most common type of fault or maintenance needed I find is loose bolts. Especially as we are getting into our fall season currently, as this is being filmed in September. The weather's kind of starting to cool down, which means the days get really hot and there's a lot of sunshine, but at night things get really cold. Because rail is metal, it does a lot of expanding and contracting. And when you do that on something that's trying to stay in one place, it doesn't really tend to hold as well. Bigger sizes of rail tend to hold better than smaller sizes. Unfortunately, we have a lot of smaller sizes, as most of our rail is from the early 1900s or 1910s. So, you know, like that, there has to be FRA states, or it has to be a tight bolt, at least one on each side of the rail. So where this is correct, I have to have one tight on this side, one tight on this side at bare minimum. We try to aim for more. This side does not have a drill hole, or a hole drilled. So unfortunately, I'm stuck just tightening this one today, as I do not have the drill on me. But we will get this tightened up and back in legal specs. This tool is an impact. I know it's a little bit bigger than the one you guys at home probably have in your garage. It is battery powered. Milwaukee does, not as an advertisement, does provide a good lightweight package. We have one of these that is gas powered. It uses essentially a chainsaw motor, but it does the same thing. It's just a big torque wrench. So, you know, you have your inch size sockets. It's very simple. Just put on what you want to go. And you tighten. A lot less labor intensive. Back in the day, and even to an extent sometimes, if we get what are called tie plates, which are these metal plates that go underneath the base of the rail, which is this part here. Sometimes the spikes will line up here, and so you can't get a wrench on it, or an impact on it, so you have to go to a wrench, which these wrenches can vary in size from 3 feet to I've seen as big as 5 feet. Very small. But luckily we live in the age of modernity, and I can save my back a little bit using some tools. Then, just to make sure everything is tightened, give it another kick. That one could use a little bit more. One final check. All right, we're back in service. One thing we do encounter a lot on inspections on the Whitewater, and in a lot of railroads in general, are unfortunately trespassers. Well, we have to look out for the more material defects, you know, the rails, the ties, the ballast, trees, more physical objects. People are another thing that we have a slight issue with sometimes. A lot of people don't realize any trespassing on a railroad is a federal crime, which can result in felonies. I'm not saying that to be a grumpy, you know, old timer or whatever, but it's just something I don't want to see people get in trouble for. It's a very simple thing. It's easy to get in trouble for and easy to avoid. A lot of things too, where we run along the river, we have a lot of kayakers and campers who have set up in the middle of our gauge. And unfortunately, in an incident where an accident were to occur, you are not going to be the one who wins. And as scary and terrible as that sounds, trains cannot stop on dimes, and to an extent, neither can track equipment. Not to mention things like glass bottles being broken can provide a hazard to those people if we have to dig somewhere. Or if it's on a tie and we spike it and it gets shot up, you know. We just have to be careful on the human side of things, not just on the mechanical and repair side. Whitewater Valley, White High Rail, southbound, milepost 6262. A lot of times, if anybody out there has a radio that they'll overhear, like CSX or whatever railroad is closer to you, you'll hear them say mileposts. Mileposts were used back in the day to tell you how many miles you were away from the nearest city. Our mileposts here at the Whitewater Valley, they indicate how close we are or far away we are from Cincinnati. The closer we get to Metamora, the shorter the number gets. The closer we get to Connersville, the little further the number. It's a good way to kind of indicate where people are on the line. It's kind of how we use to separate ourselves when we have to do work. We personally, unless it is a maintenance of way crew, of which case there are kind of special rules, we have to talk about our spacing. We usually stay a mile apart from each other when we travel. And then when we have people bunched up, especially when we have a lot of machines running together, There are certain steps like you just asking permission, like, hey, I'm going to come up behind you. I'm a mile away. Do I have permission to enter? And, you know, yes, no, hey, watch out for this. It's also kind of a way we can use to say there's a slow order, which is where we slow trains down if we do maintenance. This can prevent further issues from popping up and letting things kind of settle and get used to their new form. Rail kind of acts like a paperclip. If it gets used to being bent one way for so long, to bend it the other way, like you know with the paperclip, you bend it too far too quick, and you're just going to break it. So you kind of have to ease it into its new form a little bit. And using mileposts is a good way to indicate, hey, this happened here, you know, make sure you take it a little slower. So one thing we talk a lot about is our class specifications. We are technically listed as a Class 1 railroad, but when I say things such as we are a Class 1 or we fixed to Class 2 or something like that, a lot of people don't understand what that actually means. Think of class as kind of like how you'd almost think of an airplane seat, right? Class 1 is the kind of just general seat. It's nothing fancy, but it gets the job done. Class 2 is kind of a step up from that. It's usually more ties, it's more ballast, there's a tighter tamping limitation. Tamping is the process of putting rock under the ties, which are the wood that the rails sit on. This can help make it more level. In curves, you have to have super elevation, kind of like a racetrack, where one side of the curve will be a little higher. Even we run 15 miles an hour, that's our speed limit. That's also governed by our class limitations, but even as slow as 15 miles an hour, when you think about a car, our 15 miles an hour still requires us to have super elevation, which is kind of a unique thing a lot of people don't think about or realize.
Okay.
So one thing people don't realize about rail is how temperature sensitive it is. Like I mentioned earlier, in the fall, a lot of it expands and contracts, but something is, especially in times like the spring and the fall, and normally you'd think only in the winter would it get really small or in the summer really large. But even something as simple as if it's sunny or cloudy out can make a difference on whether or not, or how long it is. A lot of times we'll go on the ends of our track, and from the first of the year to the middle and to the end, we can measure anywhere between 1 to 2 inches of difference in our whole line, where it's just constantly expanding and contracting. And as wiggly and as flexible as it is, it's kind of crazy to think of how strong rail is for as flexible and as energy dependent as it is.